Okay, guys, this is the essay that we were looking at just before Christmas, actually. So, this is for um, Charles, Greg, and Kira because there have been no changes to that, which is why I'm doing this all together for you. But it's going to give me an opportunity to talk to you about structure and the sorts of things that you need to be doing in these essays. To support this, I will also have a mark scheme for you as well. But what I'd like you to do as part of the revision process is to add a conclusion and some more examples which can be found on the mark scheme. So if we look at a question which is using named examples, evaluate the economic and political impacts of disruption to energy supply pathways, we need to look at the keywords here. So we know we're going to be looking at examples. Right, what have I done there? So let's go back. There we go. So apologies for that. So we're not going to be using examples. We know that we're going to have to evaluate, and I'll come back to that. We're only looking at economic and political, okay, and we're looking at energy supply pathways. And it's really important for all of the essays that you do for Unit 3 that you're highlighting those keywords, what it's asking for, and constantly just glancing at those as you're writing your essay. So we know we need examples, and we'll talk about some of the ones we've used in this particular essay. We know that we're looking at the economic and political impacts only, so no environmental, no social, although there will be an opportunity to talk about those potentially in the conclusion. And we're looking at the disruption to energy supply pathways. The final bit, and probably most important when we're looking at level 4 and getting into that top mark boundary, is the evaluate. We need to, at the end of probably each paragraph, every example that we introduce, and whether you choose to do it at the end of talking about economic impacts and then doing it at the end of political impacts, or whether you choose to do it after case studies, but saying whether or not that particular impact or that piece of PSD that you talked about, is it having an impact on a local scale, on a national scale, on an international scale? Is it long term, medium term, or short term? Some sort of assessment about that impact is absolutely vital for that kind of level 4, 13 to 15 out of 15. Okay. When there's a keyword in there, we've got energy supply pathways there. Show the examiner you know what that is with a brief description, and you can see that here. Okay, we can actually probably put energy insecurity here, which is missed out from the essay that we kind of uploaded. Then you've got to think about structure, and with this particular essay, it's kind of given to you really. The most obvious one is to talk about economic and then political impacts. Another way you might do it is to actually look at specific examples, and then with each example that you give, so if you looked at, for example, the impact of Hurricane Katrina on oil, are there any economic and political issues, talk about them together. But I think it probably lends itself to talk about economic and then political disruption, which is what we can see in this particular example. So we've got some good place specific detail there, obviously a specific date, we've got location and name of the hurricane, but most importantly it's about oil production, okay, which is part of the energy supply pathway, so always linking it to the question. And then obviously talking about the economic impact, which is about the effect on oil and petrol prices. What we probably needed there was actually to talk then more about the impact that the price of oil can have on the recession, on inflation and things like that. And you can see here there's some evaluation, but we probably need a little bit more with regards to the time scale of this, and the fact that actually it is quite difficult to measure. Then we've got the economic development and the impact that can have on energy supply pathways. So obviously, levels of development. We've done the energy transition graph, so we know that as countries become more developed, they demand more energy, and that can have an impact on energy supply pathways. as you've talked about in this particular part of the essay here, when looking at the UK. Again, we need to have more assessment or evaluation at the end just here, and it's absolutely fine to have those mini conclusions at the end of each paragraph. Then we go on to political disruption. Great example, Russia and the Ukraine with the gas pipeline. Obviously we know that it affected Europe, so you're kind of talking a little bit about the area there, but just kind of talking about, you know, the level of impact, the huge impact it had on the gas supply to the rest of Western Europe. The fact that one pipeline, you know, is very, very important. That pipeline or that pathway breaks down, the issues that it can have. Again, you know, nice bit of evaluation there in terms of large-scale problem affecting many nations. You know, I do like that bit just there. And then we've got the example of the Middle East with oil, and again links to you know, the pipeline there, which is an example of a pathway. You know, constantly referring to the question. Really good. Got political there. I'm just, you know, another one of pathways just there. And this is also a really good revision technique. You know, practice questions, you know, and go through and highlight how many keywords have been used. I've not done them all, but it's something you can do as part of the process. As I say, the bit missing from here. So at the moment, this is a kind of a level 2, 3 answer, and I would say this would score kind of 8 to 9 out of 15. There's a missing conclusion, which is something that you could do as part of the revision process. In the conclusion, you can be thinking about things, you know, about the whole topic. You can bring in maybe environmental impacts, talking about the future. Obviously, the question asks about evaluation. So, you know, think what could happen in the future with regards to political and economic impacts, and, you know, what are the future of energy pathways? What are the impacts of climate change? What are the impacts of development? So there's lots of lots of things you can talk about, and that's what the conclusion give you. They give you that opportunity to show off your knowledge about the rest of the topic, but of course making sure that you are linking it to the question and that you are evaluating in this question the economic and political impacts of that of those energy supply pathways. This is something that I would like to do again on a more individual level. Obviously this is an essay that we did on Google Docs, so quite similar, but I think this is definitely the way forward for you guys in getting some good quality feedback in preparation for the exams in the summer. Thank you.